Well, it's only the fourth game of the season, and it's already time for a North London derby preview. If you had asked me over the summer, I was full of confidence. I think we're the best team in London. I think we were the best team in London last year, and nothing will happen over the summer in terms of signings that make me change my mind. Signing David Luiz was a joke, and I think when Arsenal fans were like, "Oh, look at us, we got him for a bargain," I think Chelsea are the ones that ran laughing all the way to the bank. Now it looks like a stupid signing because David Luiz is a garbage defender, and he's always been a garbage defender. He's never been a good defender, and I'm not understanding why Arsenal thought that they were improving their back line by signing him. That's like they hadn't watched Chelsea over the last 10 years or him at Paris Saint Germain. But whatever, it doesn't matter anymore. Hopefully, he'll start this weekend. Now, the big comparison, of course, all the Tottenham and Arsenal fans are pissing on each other, trying to figure out who the better signing is, Nicolas Pepe or Tanguy Ndombele. But it's really kind of a silly comparison because both of them are really, really talented. They're very young, inexperienced, but full of potential. I really don't see any difference in terms of the signings themselves. I mean, of course, they're not the same kind of player, but I'm talking about the impact on the team. Nicolas Pepe and Tanguy Ndombele both have huge potential to be really big stars in their respective clubs. And I think it's stupid for Arsenal fans to be watching our games just to criticize our new signing. It's really stupid. It just shows how stupid Arsenal fans are, and I really hope that we stop doing the same thing to them because it's a stupid thing to do. It's been 4 games. Well, it'll be 4 games coming up this weekend, and to say that Nicolas Pepe or Dembele are flops or stars is just kind of a stupid thing to do. I mean, we're not even 10 games into the season, and we can't really start talking about how either of them are flops or not flops. So, kind of like just pay attention to your own players. Just focus on yourselves. Don't don't worry about what other players are doing. It doesn't make any sense to me. I also like how Arsenal fans pretend signing Danny Ceballos was some sort of coup for them, but I'm not going to even get into that. Actually, I lied. I am going to get into it. We were definitely in for him until he decided that he only wanted a season long loan and then wanted to go back to Madrid. And at that point in time, we stopped chasing after him. So you didn't get him over us. We stopped chasing him. Therefore, you can't have gotten him above us. But it doesn't really matter. I don't remember any other major signings that Arsenal made. We signed Sessegnon, Lo Celso, and Dembele, and I thought it was a phenomenal offseason. That was then, and this is now. Now it's looking like a horribly bleak start to the season. You can tell Pochettino's just casting a forlorn figure on the sidelines. He looks not good. This is not a good face of the team right now. I've never seen him like this before. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Obviously, I'm not part of the backroom staff, but something isn't right. Now, despite managing to keep all of our important players and signing 3 really good players, still things aren't looking very good. And I have to say, I think the Eriksen Saga is the culprit. It's the lack of knowledge at what's going to happen that is creating chaos in the locker room, I feel. Since Pochettino took over, we haven't always had the most talented players. But kind of like Alex Ferguson, he's managed to do the most with what he has, even if it's not the most talented. Now, we definitely have some of the best players in the league on our team, but we also have some players that probably wouldn't make any of the other top 4 teams. But somehow Pochettino has molded those players into functional and serviceable pieces of a machine that has pretty much punched above his weight for the last 5 seasons. Pochettino's system, I think, requires absolute chemistry between the teammates, and the whole Eriksen situation is undermining the solidarity and camaraderie in the team. I would say partially to blame is the administration, the front office, by letting his contract run out like this. But I think Eriksen bears the brunt of the blame. He put himself out there thinking that every major team in Europe would be tripping over their money bags to sign him, and literally no one wanted him. Can you imagine saying, I'm looking for a new Challenge. Come get me, everyone, and nobody comes and gets you. It's clearly not a money issue either because we've offered him a contract to make him the second highest paid player on the team and he refused it. Now he has egg on his face or whatever other sticky semi liquid people get on their face after whoring themselves out like he did. Clearly, he thought people valued him more than they do, but with the attitude he played with last season, is it really a surprise no one wants him? At times last season, you could tell he just didn't care. He couldn't be bothered. He was walking around. Every once in a while, he'd just like, you know what? I guess I'll turn it on and like score an amazing goal from outside the box or play a world class pass to somebody and have them score. But in reality, you could tell he couldn't be bothered last season. He was just waiting for the season to be over so he could put himself out there and get bought by Real Madrid as he thought he would. Eriksen's situation reminds me of Prince Herbert from Monty Python. You remember the effeminate prince that lives in the tower? He shoots the arrow out with the note and is waiting for his knight in shining armor to come rescue him from his tower prison, only to realize no one wants him once they realize who he is. That's exactly what this whole situation reminds me of. It's a this just so pathetic. I think Eriksen is a phenomenal player, maybe one of the best creative forces in world football when he can bother. And as much as he changed the game against Aston Villa, clearly there are other issues the team needs to address because he couldn't help against Newcastle's fortifications. And I mean, who knew Newcastle was building a literal castle in North London? And now the whole situation is getting worse. Kyle Walker Peters is hurt with a hamstring injury. Who knows how long he's going to be out? We're left with literally no right back because we had the genius idea of letting our best right back leave for Spain, all because he had one bad season. I never understood why the fan base turned against Trippier. He was one of the best crossers of the ball in England, and he already showed it in Spain. But for some reason, we turned against him. And I don't say we, I never turned against him. He never was the best defender, but that's not what he mainly did in our system. It's not like Danny Rose is a phenomenal defender either. Kyle Walker Peters certainly isn't. Probably the best defender that we have in those positions is Davies, and he's not really that good of a defender. Ben Davies is not a very good defender. He's also not really good going forward. But in Pochettino's system, we need somebody that can go forward, and I don't remember few. I remember few people putting in better crosses than Kieran Trippier over the last few seasons. But whatever, one bad season I guess is enough to turn the entire fan base against you. So sorry, buddy. I'll miss you for one. I don't know. A lot of people don't miss you, but I do. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Kyle Walker Peters. I really hope he becomes a really good defender, but sometimes he still looks like he's got deer in headlights. It looks like Eric Dyer will get to reprise his role as right back like he did his first season at Tottenham because there are people thinking maybe Sissoko could play right back, and I'd like for those folks to be checked into the nut house. As much as Sissoko has improved over the last few seasons, there's no way he's a right back. There's no way he can do that job. We've already tested Sissoko out on the wings, and it worked not good. That's how it worked. It worked really bad. Sissoko is better when he's playing in the midfield, when he's got defensive cover, and he can bomb forward with his powerful runs. But he can't defend. That's not what he does. And it's not like he puts in good crosses either. He's not a good crosser of the ball. He's not a good defender. He's a good taker of the ball from you. He's going to outmuscle you, and he's going to take the ball and, sprint 60 yards and then play a 10-yard pass. That's what he does. And he's good at it. And I like what he does. But he can't play right back. You've got to be kidding me. And thankfully, Juan Foyth is hurt, or else Pochettino might have tried to play him at right back, and that's going to be a disaster. Now, typically, I pay little attention to what that inbred looking Arsenal pundit Paul Merson says, but I actually agree with him right now, and I think Arsenal are going to wipe the floor with us this weekend. We have our best defender sitting on the bench right now for reasons that I don't understand. And don't get me wrong, I think Davinson Sanchez is a really fantastic defender, but he's not better than Jan Vertonghen. Jan Vertonghen and Toby Alderweireld have made one of the best defensive pairings in the league for the last 5 seasons, and I don't understand why Jan is sitting on the bench. Now, I'm not saying he would have made a difference against Newcastle, but he probably would have made a difference against Newcastle. I don't think we could get scored on like that if he's on the pitch. Now our midfield presence is now gone now that Wanyama is out of the picture, and unless Eric Dyer is going to play both defensive mid and right back, I don't see how we're going to line up with a formation that can control the midfield. The only thing that gives me hope is that I seriously doubt that Arsenal are going to park the bus and sit back like Newcastle did. But gauging by how easily it was for Newcastle to rip our defense in twain, I really hope it doesn't become a back and forth goal fest because I think we come out second best in that sort of engagement. I lied. There's actually one more thing that gives me hope, and this has nothing to do with Arsenal. It has to do with us. It's the fact that we're historically slow starters under Pochettino. This is not something new. This happened last season, the season before that, and probably the season before that, if I can remember properly. The close of the European transfer window can't come soon enough, and it will be fantastic to get that weight off our shoulders. And whoever remains on the squad after this upcoming Monday is part of the squad. They're part of the squad until at least January, and they'll just have to get on with the season. And maybe the team can come together and actually start playing football, which we haven't seemed to have been able to do all season as of yet. As right now, I'm not feeling very confident. I could definitely see us losing 3-0 against the scumbags. But I guess that makes me a pessimist, but I think I'm just being realistic here. Harry Kane has hardly had a sniff of goal except after some defensive mistakes from Aston Villa. And although we did look pretty good in that second half against Aston Villa and we managed to hold off against Manchester City, we just looked lacking in ideas and creativity against Newcastle. We had the ball the entire time and we couldn't manage to put a shot on goal. I just wanted someone to come in there and start taking shots from outside the box because you never know what those balls might land. Maybe they ricochet off somebody. That's exactly how Harry Kane scored the game-winning goal. Lamella took a shot. It bounced off two defenders, landed at Kane's feet, and then he was able to score. I don't understand why nobody had the idea to shoot. And I get it. It's like it's really hard to shoot when there are 11 people defending, but sometimes you just got to take a risk. Nobody took a risk. Not a single person was taking risks. Lamella seemed to be the only person taking on defenders, and he can't do it alone. Son was taking on defenders too, but I mean, you can't dribble past three people. I mean, you can. He's done it before, but it just didn't look like it was happening for us. We've got to come up with another solution. And like I said, at least Arsenal isn't going to sit back. They're going to play. They're at home, and they're not the kind of team that sits back anyway. So hopefully something different will happen, and with a more open game, we'll be able to play our game a little bit better. But I just think Eriksen needs to leave if he's gonna leave. I don't want him on the team if he doesn't want to be there, and that goes with any other player. I think a lot of times we find ourselves to fall in love with players and want and cheer for them personally and specifically for the players. Like it's hard not to like Son, right? It's hard not to like Lucas Moura. Those are the kinds of players you can't help but cheer for. They're always happy and smiling, and they're so emotional. They leave it all on the field for the team, and they love the fan base, and the fan base feeds off that. But at the end of the day, are you a fan of the player? Sure, but are you a fan of the team? Are you a supporter of the club? In the end, there's no player that's bigger than the club, and if the player wants to leave, he's got to go. And if he's making the team a worse place, then he's got to go. No player is bigger than the club, and I think that's something that, for example, PSG didn't realize with Neymar, and maybe Manchester United didn't realize with Paul Pogba. But no player is bigger than the club. The club is the club is the entity that you're cheering for. It's not the players themselves, and yeah, you can cheer for the players, and that's a big part of it. A lot of people like a certain team because they like the players, and they'll follow other players once they leave the team, like I do, I follow. For example, I'm all of a sudden a Napoli fan now that Irving Lozano is part of Napoli. I might get a Napoli shirt. I was a huge PSV fan because they sign a lot of Mexican players. So yeah, I'm a huge PSV fan. right? So it's understandable to be a fan of the players and to support the players and follow them where they go. But in the end, you have to decide: are you a fan of the team or are you a fan of the players? If your loyalties lie with the player, then that's fine. But for those of us who would rather Eriksen leave, if it means the team's going to perform better, then you know, I think Eriksen needs to leave so the team can perform better. If he's going to be, a divisive personality in the locker room or is going to be a distraction, like Pochettino said, this isn't a charity. And a lot of people thought that was such a harsh thing to say against Wanyama, but it's true. And like Wanyama was one of our best players over the last few seasons, but once he got hurt, he just wasn't the same. And if he's not going to be the same, and like you got to, obviously take care of the person and the player as a human being and encourage them because a happy player is a good player. A sad player is never going to be as good as a happy player. But at the end of the day, he's got to do what's best for the team. That's his job. And if Wanyama has to leave and get sold, and it seems cruel because he was such a good player for us his first season, well, then that's just how it is. He's got to go. It's sad. Like Roberto Soldado, when he was with us, was a fan favorite because he played so hard and always put it out there on the field. And he always gave 100%, but the goals weren't coming and he had to go. It's just, it sucks because I liked him a lot, and I know a lot of fans liked him a lot, but you hire him to put the ball in the net and he wasn't doing that. And on the other hand, Emmanuel Adebayor was a garbage player. Well, not a garbage player, but just he put the ball in the net, but he had such a bad attitude, and it was the exact opposite of Soldado. And you're like, why? Why, God, why? Why can't Soldado put the ball in the net and be a friendly personality and have Adebayor just go? But that's just not how it works sometimes. And unfortunately, Soldado had to go. It's the same thing with Vincent Janssen. I think his teammates really liked him and were hoping the best for him. I remember when he finally scored that goal in the Premier League, all his teammates came and like hugged him and were just happy for him because they knew how hard he has worked to try to get to that spot and it just didn't work out for him. And now he's gone, and it's sad because I really liked him and I hope he really does well in Mexico. But that's just the nature of the sport. You have to perform, and if you don't perform, you have to go. And I think that's something that's happening with Wanyama, and I think that's something that's going to happen with Eriksen. Like, his performances aren't bad, but he's just not. He doesn't have his heart in it, and I think that's important because we're at a point where we're on the cusp of either falling back and regressing or on the cusp of moving forward and actually challenging for things. And I predicted at the beginning of the season that we were actually going to be fighting for trophy. Like, this is the year we're going to win something. And so far it doesn't look like it. And I can't blame everything on Eriksen, obviously. That's stupid. But I would say it's kind of not right to say it's not playing a part. And maybe once Monday is over and the window closes and everything's back to normal, the team can just move on with it. Maybe he'll be here, maybe he won't. And hopefully, if he does end up staying because nobody wants him, he'll realize that he needs to actually start playing harder, and this is his job and he needs to do it right. But if we are going to sell him, I mean, he's not going to go to he's got his heart set in Barcelona or Madrid, and he's not going to go to either of those places. So I don't know what he thinks is going to happen. In either event, this was supposed to be a North London Derby preview instead of me whinging about our woes, but I think we're going to get trashed. I really don't see how we're not going to lose this game. So, yeah, hopefully this is just me being a negative Nancy and it doesn't turn out how as badly as I expect this to turn out. But I'm predicting probably 3-0 to them. God, this is just it's horrible. But at least we're getting this game out of the way early, and maybe once we get into form, things will get better. But anyway, that's all I have to say for now.